Hey, you guys, welcome to Let's Talk Kingdom Business with Pastor Rodney Tate and Bernard Atiase. And hey, you guys, I am your girl, Carrie Evans. And today we are going to talk about kingdom entrepreneurship, what it is and what we do as kingdom entrepreneurs. So first, I want to say welcome to the channel, welcome to the podcast. So I have a few questions that I want to ask these two powerful men of God today who happen to be entrepreneurs so we can get the inside details of what it's like to be a kingdom entrepreneur. First off, I want to ask you guys to say hey and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Bernard Atiase. I come from a big family of 8 siblings, so I'm the 5th born. I'm originally from Ghana, but I was born and raised in Ethiopia. So I lived in Ethiopia for about 15 years. And then to further my education, I went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I stayed with the host family there, graduated from high school, and then I had some family living in North Carolina. So I decided to attend Winthrop University in Rock Hill. From there, graduated and started working in corporate America. Been married now for about 10 years, just celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. And now, have my own business in the construction industry.
Okay.
Pastor Rodney Tate, founder of Beyond the Walls Ministry, born and raised in Clovis, South Carolina. Grew up here my whole life from a mid-sized family, the youngest out of all the group that we have, and just grew up here watching a lot of different things that a lot of different people wanted to do but never got done. Started this church from a living room, built it 5 years ago, moved into this new building, built a rapport with the community and with a lot of other church leaders trying to get us on the same page. Work a full-time job, operations manager for a major truck company, and pastor, married for 25 years, and just believe in follow the vision. Just follow the vision and write it and make it plain.
Okay, great. So we see that we have some powerful men here at Beyond the Walls Ministries. So another thing that I want to ask you guys, because I see that both of you have said that you are both happily married and have been married for years. You have different businesses and you work for corporate America. Tell me what it's like and how do you manage all of the roles that come with being a kingdom entrepreneur, being married, working for another company, and having your own business?
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years, being married 25 years, working for a job for over 20 years, preaching for 20-something years, is balance. Balance and time. Timing and balance. One of the things that I've learned, don't rob one to make another one happen. It's very important that I don't rob the time that I need to have with my wife to try to grow a business or try to grow a business without including my wife somewhat in it. Pastoring a church, I have a flock to tend, so I have to feed them also. So a lot of times I've watched myself stay away from the burnout of business, church, and pastoring because I balance it. It have to be a time when you shut down. Have to be a time, the major time is when you spend time with God and ask the Holy Spirit, which do I do and when do I do it and how do I do it? I think one of the mistakes we make as leaders, which pushes us to burn out, is try to do everything in one day. It can never be done. So good scheduling, spending time with God, knowing which role is important for this minute. Today we're taking time out to talk entrepreneurship. Tomorrow the church will be filled with people who are looking to be fed kingdom food. And then sooner or later today I have to shut down and spend time with my wife. There got to be a shutdown time, a startup time, and a rest time.
Exactly. I definitely agree with that. It's, being able to have that work-life balance. I was in corporate America for like 15 years. And at the same time, probably about 5 years ago, that's when I started also building, residential homes. So I had that, balance of, okay, working corporate America, building homes, and then also spending time with my wife, So once I left corporate America, it actually freed me to be able to focus on the business. And then also being able to set boundaries, letting clients know, hey, these are my working hours, 8 to 5, So outside of these hours, that's the time that I'm able to spend, with my wife. So just having that work-life balance.
Okay, how does your roles affect each other?
Well, one of the things we do, we balance out very well on each other. We had to learn strengths and weaknesses, where he needs to be, where I need to be. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make when they're trying to partner up or do business is you can't dip into his area because his area is busier than yours sometimes. And if my area is busy, he doesn't dip in there. What am I saying? Well, to be entrepreneurs, you first have to have the same vision if you're working in the same thing. But he schedules, he does a lot. I'm out doing a lot of sales. I'm out doing a lot of walking through the houses, and we build together. But we had to understand we're more valuable if we're not standing there together all the time. When you first start, we sit there, we would look at the job, be so excited about, oh, Lord, look what happened. But while we're standing there, there's something else need to be done. So we had to leave and rush. But when we properly started scheduling ourselves, started looking at, okay, you got one house, you can be there. But we went from having that to 3 houses at one time, to we building 5 at one time now. You can't be together all the time at the same place all the time. Somebody have to schedule it. Somebody have to be there to handle the schedule. Somebody have to deal with the homeowners. So we found a balance in that. And the biggest thing I tell people, if you're going to work together, there should never be a competition. There should always be a balance, a respectful balance, a line that if he needs help, he got to protect me and I got to protect him. So we just learned to look at it and say, hey, you need to know what needs to be done, do it, and we'll communicate. Communication is big. If we don't communicate, we'll just run over each other, and it becomes frustration. Where the lack of communication is, there's always a major frustration.
Yep, I agree. And actually, I got started with my business because of Pastor Tate. He was able to set up a seminar about, how to build houses. It was Pastor Presley who came through and kind of taught us how to build houses. So I took that and I was like, you know what? Let me build my own house. So my wife and I, we built our own house based off of those principles from that seminar. And, other family members saw that and wanted me to build their houses as well. And so I was able to do that. And then, I was able to partner with Pastor Tate, and he enhanced it to another level. Being able to bring clients and, using his strengths to be able to just enhance the business. So, I thank him for that. And, we've partnered together, and he knows what things to do and what I should do, and we always communicate with each other, and we're always thinking on another level. How can we improve the business? We're having conversations daily, several times a day, just talking about, okay, what do we need to improve on? What processes and procedures do we need to put in place just to make sure that our business can continue to grow?
And I want to add one thing, that since we have done this, Bernard has really been a pioneer of going after it first. Now we're not just residential. Bernard, not myself, we look at commercial. And so when somebody says you own your own business, Bernard maybe have to sit aside and be disciplined for 4 hours, 3 hours, talking to people about deals that may never come to fruition, but we need to be in the presence of these people. So there are times when Bernard is saying, hey, I'm going to be in meetings for the first 4 hours of this day. And I know then to set my day up to protect his brain to say, hey, I'll be out here. You make sure, and it's a deal. And then we have to rush to see a deal and try to get a potential deal, through that day. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't get it. Even when we don't get it, it's not a loss. It's teaching. And Bernard does a lot of things that, for instance, we were talking to a guy one day, and he was overseas. And we were one of us got to fly out. He says, hey, we might need to meet in Virginia. Bernard says, well, because he has taken the first step, and he has made freedom and time for himself, he can move. My time, I can't rush that. I have to know when to come behind that and say, because I have a certain level of freedom doing what I do, I can move and still work a corporate job. So there are times when, if you're going to do this, you have to be, number one, knowing how his strength works. If you can exhaust his mind, you could shut down a business. You can exhaust the body and kill the workers. So it's twofold. You got to get proper rest, and you got to spend time just relaxing your mind. Some people think I just want to relax my body, but your mind. So I've talked to him, and he was like, man, I'm tired of thinking. like I've been thinking since for 8 hours. I just been using my head. So sometimes just how do you get out of that? I ask him all the time, but not like, how do you shut this down?
That's a very good question. How do you shut your mind down?
My mind is constantly going, because we have several projects going on, and then I'm thinking on the next level, okay, well, what else can we do? But, I think when I wake up, the first thing is having a devotional, so that helps with mental health, connecting with God, the first thing you do in the morning. And then after that, it's working out. So, during those times, that's kind of when I get my mind to relax, and it gets me focused on the day. So that's kind of how I do it.
So for current entrepreneurs and those who are potentially thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, would you say that strategy and structure is the best part of entrepreneurship? Because as an entrepreneur, we have been given the same ability to be creators, just like Jesus himself was a creator, and his mind constantly thought about things, constantly thought about how he could serve his gift to the people that were around him. And sometimes when he became, I guess I want to say overwhelmed, he got to a place to where he went alone to himself. Right. So basically, it's important to create that alone time to quiet the mind. How do you effectively quiet the mind when you have the mind of a creator?
Yeah, it's a good point. Because I think early in the morning, when you wake up and have that devotional, with God, that is an important time, because you are connecting with God and you're asking God to lead you and guide you, So that's an important time for that.
And I agree. Because when I get up, I have to have a time that I don't move. So I sit there. Because I often teach, let the Holy Spirit lead you through the simple, then he can lead you through the big. I think a lot of people get up, they're running from behind so much, they're busy, so they're praying to God while they're moving. Sometimes I like to sit down and let God just minister to me, because when I get in my vehicle, there are times that's not my quiet time anymore. That's my office moving. And so I do a lot of deals from my truck, my vehicle, while I'm moving. And sometimes I just like to ride off and just say, okay, shut it down. Or what I love is the time when I do get to study and I'm not ready to feed anybody. I'm not feeding you. I'm not feeding, because I like feeding myself too. I like to test my own meal. And when I ask God, sometimes I need a word. I like to get something to feed me, because when you first start out, excitement runs you. Excitement, the thrill of, you making money or you running or this is working. But after that, you got to do what I call, scaling up. Scaling up is preparation, looking for the next thing. Hey, for instance, this morning before 9 o'clock, I'm with a realtor telling her, hey, I'm going to put a sign on a piece of property we just purchased. Got to call Bernard. Hey, this right here going on the MLS. We need to email what house we want to put and the price we're going to put it on. Then I get there telling her the negotiation of the price and getting ready to try to go look for more properties. She sends me a house. Why don't you look at this? And it's Saturday. It's on a weekend. Some people say you have to learn to turn it off. I do know when to turn it off, but I have to be careful not to just run yourself in the ground, but not to allow procrastination to set in either. Right. So when you're out here, and I tell most entrepreneurs, and Bernard, I think he'll answer this better, makes the fatal mistake of, I don't work for anybody. You do. Mm-hmm. You work for you.
That's a very, very important thing that I think entrepreneurs need to understand, that we have the mentality that we work for ourselves and we can do what we want to do, so we don't have to structure our day in a certain manner to where everything gets done and we can effectively serve what we're offering with joy and gladness and not having burnout status. So, as you see, it's so much that comes along with being an entrepreneur, and we like to share our knowledge and we like to share how God views entrepreneurship. So my next question for both of you gentlemen is, how did you know God was calling you to entrepreneurship? And do you feel like entrepreneurship is a calling?
Well, I would say there's two things about entrepreneurship and calling. When you're called, you have to first answer the call and say, I'm willing to do this. And with the calling becomes a certain level of passion, teaching, and everything. Entrepreneurship, you could be called and trusted. Now, I have to say that because God says, I'm maybe going to give these guys the opportunity to open up this in this season because there's a need, number one. But because I'm a fund kingdom projects through them. So when God does that, he calls you because he has a further need and he can trust you not to squander, waste, but you are a steward over the kingdom finances that he put you over. So a lot of times I believe that God does cause different men to action because he have a bigger picture for the kingdom. And he says, hey, y'all are the guys that I'm going to use in this capacity. I can't call everybody because we were sitting down talking Sunday, and you made a comment and said most men or women get out want to be entrepreneurs because they want to buy a G-Wagon, a Mercedes, or $50,000 or $60,000. Well, they don't have the money for the next startup or the next project. And God says, hey, I needed this to keep going. If you remember in the Bible, when God gave Joseph a dream, he gave him a dream. He had to stay in the dream. No matter how hard it was, stay in it. When he became second to Pharaoh, the dream was for, there's a famine coming, and I need you to be able to have this business sense so you can feed the people of God. There are times when I believe that God do set people up, and not everybody is set up by God, but God puts a special ability with the calling on your life. But we were talking, Bernard and myself, and I'll let him say this, we were talking about what God has done in the last 10 years. And I was like, man, since that seminar happened, I wasn't thinking about building. So you're prompt because there's a need in this calling of entrepreneurship. I started looking at it. I remember Pastor Presley, we were doing it. Miss Joyce was here. Phil, one of my members, house had burned down. So he told me I was going to build this house. I said, man, I'm barely finishing this. But it was a need, so it pushed me into something. And when I saw opportunity that we could do this, and then the unction came that this could be done differently, then you have to not only have the calling, but you have to know who to team up with, when to team up, because the biggest question is who God calls, he qualifies, right? We say that.
Uh-huh.
But what happens when he called you into this? Where your money gonna come from? So we had to go out and do for less, almost for free, to get our foot to the next level. What you think about that?
Yep, I agree. And it just brings me back to when I was working in the corporate world, you know, I didn't understand generational wealth, you know. I was thinking, okay, well, if I work overtime, you know, that's how I'll make more money because, you know, I was getting paid hourly at first when I started. And then, you know, reading books and understanding that, hey, you know, there's another way, you know, being able to make your money work for you, having your own business. But then going deeper into it and reading the Bible, I was looking and seeing, like, you know, the Bible tells you everything that you need to know about finances, entrepreneurship, you know, financial discipline, power of wealth. So I started understanding that, hey, everything I need to know is in the Bible, you know? And from there, just being able to be disciplined and learn everything you need to know about your business to be able to take it to the next level.
That's right. If you guys are just now tuning in, we have been talking about what it's like being a kingdom entrepreneur. Take a moment to like, share, and comment on the video. We want to know your thoughts. Share this to someone who is been called to walk into the role of entrepreneurship. This moment right here is for you to grow in faith and in business. So make sure you stay tuned in because I have so many more questions to ask these two powerful men. The next question that I want to ask is, what advice do you have for people or anybody that is starting entrepreneurship, but they keep failing? Nobody talks about how many times you have to fail before you become successful. Entrepreneurship is not a journey to where you're going to be an overnight success. It takes discipline. It takes structure. It takes knowledge and willpower. So what is something that you can tell somebody who's thinking about entrepreneurship when they're failing? Because it's going to happen at some point.
And, you know, this is not the first business that I started. You know,
Right.
I tried to get into the e-commerce business and failed at that.
Me too.
You know?
Me too.
And then when I wanted to start this business, in order to even start, I had to pass a test, you know, to get my residential license. The first time I took it, I failed.
I
You
just
know?
failed a test
Right.
on Tuesday of last week.
Mhm.
I just failed the insurance test.
Right.
I missed it by like 4 points.
Right.
And it's like I studied all this time
Yes.
and I still.
Exactly.
So I've been
Exactly.
battling myself like,
Right.
look, I'm just fixing to.
Exactly. So imagine if I said, oh, well, I'm going to give up. I mean, I failed. I studied
Right.
hard, you know, and even with my commercial the first time, I failed, you know. So the failure kind of just pushes you and should motivate you to be able to go again,
Right.
you know. So telling entrepreneurs for the first time, yeah, there's always going to be some failures, but don't let that discourage you. Let that push you to be able to accomplish what you need to do.
And,
Right.
and I think the failure is a teacher.
Right.
Since we have started this, and I look at just churches, when I went to ask people how to build a church, no pastor would tell us. We went 7 times to 7 different banks, and I had to have meetings every year saying we gonna build this year. Was I lying? No, I believe that. But you have to be able to have more faith in the process you're in than the embarrassing doubt of others. I don't care how people were seeing me. I said the same thing. Bernard, if he failed, okay, he calls. He says, "Hey, man," I said, "How we looking?" He says, "Okay, I got to go back." Okay, but what he's not telling you on this side is he have 3 people who he's met in the last 3 weeks, 4 who are trying to get their license, who are trying to do this. He sits time trying to mentor now. So the first thing people want is this, and I tell you what causes failure to hurt so bad. We look at 10-minute clips of life.
Highlight reels of successful people. And people will tell us they failed, but they don't tell us the feeling behind failure. They don't tell us the pressure behind failure. And so I tell people, if you're worried about other people's opinion of you or what didn't go right, I had people, Bernard and I went to bid on $500,000 worth of land one time. And this guy heard me preach about it. And he says, "I don't see you with no land. Did you get the land?" And I says, "I don't have it yet." Well, I lost the bid. I went right back and bid it again somewhere else. And the same guy looked at me and said, "You really went back and did it, right?" God will push you in an area. If he's called you to it, failure doesn't mean you're not going to get it. Failure means, do you trust the process? I think people are scared of process. Golly, nobody's starting off perfect. This church didn't start off perfect. It was in a living room. Failure, year after year. Now we're looking to build a dream center. So if I had listened to myself doubt me, doubt God, count people, what is failure? Failure is, to me, a tool that can enhance or kill. Because failure can motivate you. Bernard, I remember the day we was looking and we was trying to close a deal out and we needed something to be done and we didn't have all the paperwork or different things that we needed. And we still went like we had everything. and we showed up and you didn't know it. We knew it, but I didn't let that be in my mind because I knew if we would need it, God would give it. And before we got the deal, God had gave it to us. And I think when you're dealing with kingdom, you have to understand people talk themselves out of God's blessings more than talk themselves into God's blessings. I don't have to talk myself and convince myself God is going to bless me. If I'm a kingdom-minded person, that's settled. What I have to stop doing is making failure a God. That I talk to failure before I talk to God. I wake up, I don't talk to failure. Failure can't come in my house. When I go in the house, they say this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Hey, do we count it failure? We had a big deal going on the table this week. We got outbidded or whatever. We laugh. It's like, all right, but it's not a failure. It's saying, hey, structure the deal next time. Don't do anything different. And you're not out of it because they wrote us back and said this, and this. But why do failure is caused by something. Failure just don't occur. So what you do is you go back and look at failure. And you look at what caused the failure. And I say this real quick. I read a book about the guy who owns Honda. His last name is Mr. Honda. And he was racing cars, and his motors would blow. He asked the engineer to go out there and get the parts. He said, why would I get the parts off of an engine that is blown? Mr. Honda fired the guy and went back and got his parts. He didn't want anybody to see what he had because he believed in his part, not the part failing. So he fired the guy. He says, it's not the parts. It's the man who I have trying to run the parts. He picked up his parts. He raced his car again, won 5 Indy races in a row. Only because he trusted his process and knew that I got to go back to the drawing board, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure. It's something wrong. Like when you fail the test, you missed one answer.
You missed 4 answers. I missed the answer. Okay? Then I go back and study those 4. Go study those, because if I needed to get 80 right, see, if I needed to get 80 and I only got 76, right? Why let the 4 kill my 76 I know? Most people let the 4 override the 76. I'm going to go back and figure out, okay, I know this. I stick to what I know, and I prepare to do better in what I don't know.
Right. You made several valid points that I think should be discussed. And one of them, and you got to stay tuned for the next ones now. You got to stay tuned. So one of them you mentioned was self-doubt and limiting beliefs and how that affects Christian entrepreneurs. How do you manage self-doubt, limiting beliefs as a Christian when you know God's word, but that subconscious mind and the things that you were taught when you were a child, they tend to creep up a lot when you're in your adult self and you're trying to function? How do you deal with self-doubt and limiting beliefs as a Christian?
No, that's a good point. It just brings me back to the first house that we built together. And this house was the biggest house in the subdivision. And they were asking us, like, hey, is this something you can do? And we were saying, yeah. And, you know, Pastor Tate asked me, like, later on, like, hey, do you think we can do this? And instead of doubting, I said, yes, we can. And we were able to build it, you know? So if we had doubted, it wouldn't have even opened up all these other opportunities. Right. So you definitely have to have faith and believe and not let any doubt creep in.
And I agree, because we sit there and I can just remember standing in front of the house that we were getting ready to build at the time, and it reminded me that big, if it ain't scaring you, it ain't God sometimes. And so we was going big, first one. The process, regardless if it's big or small, is the same. It's the amount of money, time, changes of looking at something that you finna put your hands to, that people will be at or at. They would look at it and say, wow. And it's not it's scary, but what I learned through moving into this church from a storefront and moving in from the storefront from a living room was, every time God moves you higher, you have to understand God gives you the provision. Because when we got bigger, some of the people who was with us on the way up, we had to change them out because they couldn't scale us on the size that we were going in the time we was going. And a lot of times what scares people is, I'm good at this level, but this is another level.
Right.
And I want all entrepreneurs to understand there's levels to this.
Very much so.
There's levels. Like everybody wants
so.
this,
Yes.
this be here, and I see it on. I look at YouTube and Facebook and all these guys telling you this right here, this here, and I was like, they've skipped 10 levels. They skipped all this and giving you this, and some guys running out here to say, oh, I'm gonna do this, and they don't know the rules of money. They don't know credit. They don't know how money works. They don't know what an LLC, a C Corp, S Corp. They don't know taxes, accounting. It's so much before you get the plane off the ground to entrepreneurship that you got to be messing with. And most people fail is because they don't do the due diligence of time. They don't want to put the time in to figure out what I need for next step. And when God gets you to the next, half the people never ready. When Bernard told us we could do it, I was like, okay, I'm good. I started running around trying to sell more. So we started selling houses. We have what I always keep a list of our first big one. Our first time we built 2. Our first time we built 3. Our first time we built 5 at a time. God always raised us to this. But with each time that raises, your technique, your planning, your faith, your money, everything have to move up with you. It won't, if you skip a process, it'll come back and bite you.
Your level of thinking has to
Level of
elevate too.
thinking.
Now, you made a very valid point. So let's bring up a topic that most people don't like to talk about. Let's talk money and entrepreneurship. Let's talk about it. All right. A lot of times we sit back and we watch others, and they portray this elaborate, lavish lifestyle of an entrepreneur, right? But nobody talks about the roller coaster of success. You're going to reach a high point, and then you're just going to drop. And that's the point that's going to test your entrepreneurship capabilities. Can you handle managing a business when you're not making any money? Can you handle it when you are breaking even? And a lot of times, I feel like limiting beliefs stop us because we have a certain mentality around money. We have a certain thought on how we should handle money. Entrepreneurship, yes, can take you as high as you want to go. It's a free economy. When it's a free economy, you can go and make as much as you want to make. So what advice would you give? What advice would you give entrepreneurs when it comes to money? How should they view finances when they're beginning to enter into entrepreneurship?
Well, I think the first thing really is, you've got to have financial discipline.
Wow.
Right.
That's very powerful. So even if in your personal life, if you're having issues financially, having discipline, it's going to carry over into your business as well.
Right.
So I would say definitely having that discipline and just being able to understand how money works as well.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, understanding how money works, because once you can understand how money works, it's able to flow more easily.
Okay.
And the word flow, that means move. Money have to move. A lot of times, people have the habit of stopping the flow of the money for the business, putting their personal lives and their personal wants with the business flow. You have to separate the business from personal. In other words, if you're an entrepreneur, all the money doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the LLC, the C Corp, or whatever your group is under, right? So what happens is most people feed the family out of one big account. My kids got to do this. They got to do this. I got to do this. No, what you have to have is a system how you going to pay yourself from the business.
Right.
So if you don't know how to pay you, you'll never know how to pay anybody else. So what I had to learn and what I understand money is that this business ain't to give me all my wants. No, this is a business. This business is to make sure that I have something left, that if I'm gone, the generation after me have something, or my wife is all right, or this is growing legacy, and I'm helping others. But in the meantime, I have to discipline myself against wants. It's hard. You see yourself just made, let's say, and I'm just using a crazy number, $5,000 to $15,000, and you don't tithe. So number one, God can't trust you for that. Number two, you're taking the latest, greatest new device and you wearing that, you're looking good, everything is shining. But when the business calls for something, new equipment, advertisement, and this is what entrepreneurs don't understand. The reason we're LLC or C Corp or S Corp, right, is because that's a veil that stops you from being sued, right? But when that ain't got no money, when that doesn't have the money to go back, if we build a house, that house still is under our name for another year. So people be like, oh, you made all this money. Yeah, but I still got to cover the cost of fixing everything a year. And people be like, they take that for granted. So if you eat up all your profit, you eat up everything, and something happens at the house, you could be sued for not going to fix it. So it's a business. It's not about some. I hate to lie when people say this because I don't judge myself or anybody on anything that I do versus what they do. They'll tell you in books or this, it takes 2 years for you to make money. The first 5 years you're gonna lose. That may be true for somebody, but it may not be true for everybody. It's different rules. You have to find out where you at in this. And when you're dealing with money, see, people want banks to give them money. But they don't even know what bank to go to. They go to local banks or federal credit unions. They don't have money for business like that. So first of all, you got to know what to do with money, where to get money, how to handle money, and it's so many things. And then what if God tell you, I want you to sow $10,000, and you got to battle that in your mind because you done spent the $10,000.
And he will make you do it seriously.
So if he can't trust you, why he gonna give you another 100? Because number one, you're not gonna pay the 10,000. He's not talking about the 10 off 100. He's talking about you just made 12. He says, I want you to pay tithes and give me the other 10, the 10,000. And I done spent this. My wife didn't want to go to this, so I'm gonna give you 7, God. Well, in the kingdom, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
You go to banks, this guy's sitting in there, or people want to get different stuff to their houses, and I want to get a loan for my house. And we have never been trained in certain areas, in certain communities, to understand money. You understand 48 hours bring, what time and a half is, what double time is. If I work this long, this is how much money I'm going to bring. You have been taught to be a calculator, but not a bank. One of the things I tell people is this: instead of having your money in the bank, that's good, but have your money where it can flow and still be working while you sleep. Number one. Number two, the bank you need is a think bank. You know, they used to give us penny banks. What I tell people is, take a bank, a jar, and put an ideal in it every week. And every week, if that idea pulls you out, how much money do I need to make this idea happen? How much money do I need to stop wasting to invest in this idea?
There we go. Yes. As you guys hear, it is so much to entrepreneurship. We don't want to turn you away from entrepreneurship. We want to educate you and tell you what it is that you need, the mindset that you should have as an entrepreneur. But before you can do any of these things, there is one principle that you should apply moving forward, and that is write the vision and make it plain. Because before you can go into a bank, before you can even connect with someone to even build your business or begin building your business, it's important that you have a business plan. That principle is not in the Bible for just no apparent reason. Use the principles that God has set forth for you so that you can begin. Now, I have 2 questions that I want to ask these gentlemen before we wrap it up. One of them is, let me see which one. How do you describe the power of Next for entrepreneurs, church leaders, and the working force?
Well, I would say if my view of the power of Next is this. I've watched people who are ready to retire. I watched a guy, matter of fact, just retired this week, who walked out at 61 years old, and he told me, I said, what are you going to do next? He says, whatever I want to do. And I says, how do you understand it? I says, what that mean? He says, well, I've saved enough money that I could pay myself from here to 80 or 90 years old and still pay myself after tax $50,000 or $40,000 a year. He says, so whatever's next for me, I've worked towards that. The power of next is, are you prepared for when it happens? the power of next for a pastor. Are you ready for this next move of the wave of God? Everybody have to understand that something is going to happen. You're going to get older. You're going to get slower. You're going to have more people come in. You're going to have people leave you. What's next? We sitting here now, but we got pictures of a dream center coming next. How do I prepare? And I already after that thought, God, once we do that, we're not finished. So I'm already looking even for the church. Hey, how do we expand this? Just show you the power of next. And then I give it to Bernard. But I called Miss Joyce this week and I said, hey, Miss Joyce, look at our platform. Miss Joyce goes on and look at our platform and says, hey, Facebook and these platforms are changing. Views are not the same as they used to give them. And now you got so many people who tune in for 3 seconds, or so many people tune in for this long. Now, so if you're not knowing that the platform has changed, you're going to a next already behind. So I started telling her, hey, first thing we need to do is upgrade all these computers. Next thing we need to do is see how can we get those 30. We had 35 to 40 people who tuned in for 3 seconds. I had to look, okay, what was hindering them from staying to 6 seconds, to 10 seconds. My thought was, so we started looking. When they tune in, what did they see? They see an intro. I need to cut the intro. Get rid of the fat so they can get the 3 seconds and they can see what they're looking for. Because now the window of their attention is stopped. Next means I don't have a whole bunch of time when it happens. I got to adjust and know that it's coming. Like after this, we get 1,000 views, people calling. We already got people, Bernard is mentoring, 3 other guys. We talking to guys. We just helped another guy go to class from Gastonia, Hispanic gentleman. So we got a lot of next. Like we never thought it would be coming, but you got to prepare for next. The power of next is preparation.
Yes.
Exactly. And also thinking of the power of next for us is, okay, how can we take our business to the next level?
I
right?
like that. I like that.
And in thinking of that, I was reading a book and it was saying, can you leave your business for 1 year and come back to it and it's more successful than when you left it?
Good question.
And that's powerful because it makes us think, do we have the right people and processes in place where we can look at it and say, wow, if we can leave for a year and it's still on autopilot, it is still working, it is still moving, and we're still making money from the business. So thinking of next, that's what we're thinking of, the next level.
I like that.
And that's scary.
Yes, very.
And when we
very
talk, and when I want to say that, and we're getting ready to close, I know, but when we discuss that, that takes you elevating your mind to another level of thinking.
Right.
Because you've been used, and I want to help young entrepreneurs and people, because we don't know it all, but we just want to share what the kingdom mindset is. You have to get out of the work hard syndrome. Hustle mentality. You got guys who are looking at us who ex-drug dealers. Okay, yeah, it taught you how to get money, but you're still out there trying to do the same hustle, and you're in hustle when you should be in business.
Right.
And the danger of, and what makes drug dealers go to jail is they stay in the hustle too long and never go into business. And when they do that, nobody's taught them that you're finna get all this time because you hustled too long. And I thought to myself, they weren't ready for next. They weren't ready for what happens when the drug you sell is no longer in demand, or the drug you sell is now you can get it at CVS, or the drug you sell, now you don't have no money left over. Right. You don't have nothing. You didn't invest no money. You bought no land. You did nothing with it. And now, who are you? Because when Bernard told me this, he says, man, a year later, this should be running and nobody should have to do it. I was like, man, we just structured this like this. We can't get comfortable. Let's not hit autopilot. Let's structure it where, hey, I called Bernard a while back and says, hey, it might be a deal on a truck we need to buy. He's like, all right, go, let's see what it is. It was an 18-wheeler. Because we were saying, if this is running so good, there's other avenues that we may want to get in and we may want to start seeing. So next is, if you ask Bernard, 10 years ago, did you see yourself building houses? No. I didn't either. 10 years ago, I didn't see me could retire now. 10 years ago, I didn't see none of this. So next came without an invitation, without a warning, without anybody saying, hey, study for this. This is what, no profit. Next came because an opportunity was given through a seminar, and somebody jumped and grabbed hold to opportunity, and God says, okay, I can bless you.
All right. So my last question is, what's one thing you have learned as a small business owner that has carried you and has served you throughout the years of your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I would say in our business, just being honest, communication, reliability, all those are powerful things that as a client, I would expect that and want that from, a builder. So just being able to show those things to them, it's so important because you want to be able to have communication with someone who's building your house, someone who's reliable. If they say they're going to do something, they are, So that's kind of carried us a long way where people can come to us and say, hey, you know what? They said they were going to do this and they did, so, yep.
And one of the things that you don't lose who you are while you're trying to grow something.
Ooh, that's major.
Don't get lost while you're trying to grow. A lot of our houses, we don't advertise our Christianity. But before we build, we go and pray on the land. We still pray. We pray, we're anointed with oil, and we do that. And then a lot of the people who we'll build for, I want us to pray for it. Can y'all pray for the house? So we don't want to lose our relationship with God chasing money, because you can't.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs have to know that your Father in heaven has ordained you with gifts. You activate them as opportunities come. But you could lose yourself, and you could lose your relationship with God if this becomes your God. And you have to understand who is your God, because the business can very easily become God. It can become number one priority in your life. I tell young entrepreneurs, there's no difference. And I treat my marriage, church, business, all the same. I work for all these, and God owns them all. And I don't want to be late. I want to be responsible. I want to make sure I do the due diligence for every part of it. So my thing to entrepreneurs is this. We're getting ready to do a big, as you can see, we're going to set aside some time. I think it's in September. We're going to be announcing the dates. We're going to be trying to bring like-minded people. But I want the people to hear the truth. I'm tired of seeing the frustrating looks on Christians who paying their tithes, doing all these things, but broke. People who, and I want to say this, entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
Nope.
Some people, God is going to elevate you on your job.
Right.
Some people are going to work a job and grow a business, and then you're going to be able to go part-time and then walk out. Know the stages and the steps on how God moves you. That's the most important thing, because it's scary. You might have the idea, but you never can get it going. You're an entrepreneur thinker.
That's a major thing a lot of people deal with, seriously, they can have it in their head, but they don't know the practical steps to actually put it in motion. So getting it out of your head and on paper to a business plan to make it work for you. That might be a topic for next time. You got to stay tuned in. You have anything else you want to add?
No.
What about
God
you?
bless you. We thank God that y'all allowed us to come into your living rooms, your offices, your cars. We just want to preach kingdom and business and entrepreneurship, relationship with God. This stuff is needed because it's another tool that the church has access to but refuse to use. My biggest thing about church people and church growth is this. It is easier for you to have entrepreneurs who you know will pay into your vision and the next move of God than the people who are under the strain and power of somebody who can tell them, we don't need you anymore. You know, our job is to create more jobs. I have some young men who graduating this year. You know, I guess college is this. I'm trying to push them. Go get a trade. Let me show you that this pays this much money. And one of the things I close with this is it's not how much money you make. It's how much money you have after you've paid everybody.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true.
There's no good to make $1 million and you got $100 left.
Right.
But if you use that concept right, the bank will say how much you made, and then they will loan you based on your gross. But you still got to live till you get to that point. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And pay attention to the economy because it's speaking. If you're going to open a business that has a need. It's simple, supply and demand.
Amen.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Let's Talk Kingdom Business with Pastor Rodney Tate and Bernard Atiase and myself, Carrie Evans. Stay tuned for what we're going to talk about next week. We have so many topics that we want to share with you guys to help you grow in faith and in business. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.